What's up, YouTube? Today we are working on a 2009 Toyota Prius, probably one of the most reliable cars ever made, but this one has a funny little issue. Every time I use the cruise control on the expressway and hit the brakes, the cruise control light starts flashing and cuts off. You have to turn the system off and then back on again. That is the cruise control system to get it to work. Now, I have another video on this, link in the description, for a 2010 Toyota Camry that was doing the same thing some time ago. That one was easy to get to. This one is not. So basically, the purpose of this video is to help you get to this switch. You'll look up inside there. There is a little green, right about top of the screen there. You see that green clip? There's like a rainbow of wires and then a black hose that looks like a vacuum hose, then a little green clip. We got to get that off and change out the switch, which I will show you. Right here is what the new one looks like. It just threads in and there's a lock nut here. The problem is getting to it. I'm pretty darn limber and I'm not even gonna get close. So basically, the first thing we need to do is take out this screw here. We need to get this piece of trim off. These are fragile, they do break, so be careful. But the first thing you're gonna do is get one of your plastic pry tools, get in here, and that just pops right out like that. Again, being careful. It comes out. Careful, there's often nasty stuff in there. There's dead grasshopper in this one. That's lovely. Set that aside, and then we're going to work on getting this bottom panel off, which is, unfortunately, you can see there where the plastic changes color, it's also part of this. So this has got to come off too. Now, the next trick here, I'm not sure if you saw it before, but there is a screw that would have been behind where the grasshopper's hiding. The next thing to do is to pop out this trim piece, which will loosen up the bottom here. Now, I believe, without digging too much further, just loosening this gives us enough access. It does. Yep. So we're able to get to that this way. Again, if you're limber, it is absolutely a brutal job for somebody that, you know, has some physical issues or is not that flexible. What I'm probably going to end up having to do is recline this seat. I'm gonna push the seat all the way back, recline it all the way, and my legs will be up over the back. I'm gonna take off my boots so I don't, you know, screw up the headliner. But it'll be like when I wired my 1950 Chevy Street Rod. I had to literally, and that seat doesn't recline because it's, you know, 72 years old, right? But I had to have my shoulders and my head down here and my feet up there. And I'll tell you, I think I was maybe 25 years old when I built that car, and it made me sore for a while. So now at, you know, pushing 35, maybe a little bit more so. And if you're watching this with physical issues, I do feel bad for you. The other way around this too was, of course, to have the vehicle up on a lift or raised very, very high and either stand next to it or kneel next to it. But it is on the ground, and I'm going to tackle it by, you know, getting up on the seat and in there. But very simply, if you look at the body of the switch, it just rotates, it unscrews out of there, and then there's a little jam nut, which, if you could see, there's a little bit of threads, and you see that jam nut right at the bottom of it. There's a little bit of threads exposed, and that will do everything that you need it to do with only, I believe, a 14mm wrench. And then the idea is, when I push the brakes, I try to show you guys. I do apologize for the camera work, but this is very difficult. If you look at the end of that threaded piece, see as I release the brake pedal, how that switch comes out? That turns your taillights on. And it also tells the computer that you've pressed the brake pedal. But if you know anything about electronic wiring, one would assume that that is just simply, you know, a continuity thing. You know, continuity, no continuity, right? So brake lights off, brake lights on. But it is more detailed than that. It is a 4-wire connection, and this is intelligently monitored by the computer, and it's essentially like 2 switches in one. What I would assume, and I could be wrong, so call me out in the comments if I am. This is just a guess, but I would assume that the 2 switches in one is a normally closed and one is a normally open circuit, right? So you've got a circuit that's always like this, now it's like this. You've got a circuit that's always like this, now it's like this. And if both of them don't do the same thing, that is quite likely how the computer throws this code, which, of course, I know about because, you know, I have access to a bit more advanced scan equipment than, you know, your typical, but there's a B code for it, right? It's like an ABS code or a body code or something like that. It wouldn't throw an engine light, and they don't always necessarily throw a different light. So this is like a hidden code, if you will, that will give you a malfunction for this brake switch, which is what causes the cruise control issue. So that is just my, dare I say, educated guess, right? That's just my car guy guess, that the 4 prongs are because there's 2 switches in one. This is intelligently monitored. So whatever goes on inside there, if it's my guess or if it's something different, the computer does know when this switch starts to fail, because obviously a complete failure of this switch means you're going to get rear-ended when somebody doesn't see your brake lights. So I'm going to get that one in there, and we're going to take her for a road test and make sure everything's good. Okay, now this is absolutely brutal, but I'm laying kind of like this, right? I'm half out of the car, half in it, laying down. And if I pull this plastic back, I was able to get at, let me see if I can show you guys. Again, I am so sorry for the camera work, but there's no easy way to do this. Right there. If you look, I'm going to try to get you right there. See the nut? So that's a 14 millimeter. I used this super skinny wrench here, and it's tough. I mean, you're gonna have to play it that way and then that way to get the different angles. But once you crack that loose, it slides right out of there. And what I'm gonna do is make sure that the new one, line the nut up with the new one the same way the old one was, and snug it down, and I hope that that switch is adjusted properly, because if it's not, it's more work. But if I could do it, you could do it. So if you're struggling, hang in there. I haven't used any special tools yet, just a 14 millimeter wrench. All right, so here is our old one. It's out, praise God. Nothing looks to be wrong with it, but again, it's going to be on what's on the inside that's the problem. Sounds like a lot of people, pardon the joke. Anyways, so that's the old one. This is the new one. You can see they're exactly the same. We'll look here, put them side by side. It's tough to do with one hand, but you can see, there you go, exactly the same. So what I'm going to do is put the nut, the jam nut, on the new one in the exact same position as the old one. And just check everything over really good and fire it back in there and make sure that it lines up, and then tighten that jam nut. An easy way to make sure that they are exactly the same is to put them like this, right? So the edge of one nut rides on the edge of the bolt on one, and the same thing on the other, like that. So these are the exact, regardless of the length, the total length of the threaded shaft there, the distance here is what we care about. So you just do that, which again is easier with 2 hands, but now I know for a fact that this new one going in is ready to go in, and hopefully in the exact same spot. It's pretty obvious, but just make sure that your connector is out of this before you start messing with it, so you don't break it, and of course so you don't twist it when you try to take the switch out. Okay, so now that everything's back together, and I've been through the part of getting it apart, I will say one of the worst parts is getting it back in, because it's at a downward angle, and I guess my hands are, they span pretty long. I wear like a large glove in the garage, if that helps. My hands aren't fat. So with decently, nimble fingers, it's almost impossible to get up in there and get that thread started. But once you do, you can just put one finger on it and kind of, like kind of this, right? Like turn a knob like that from the side and get it the threads the rest of the way in. If I can show you, just make sure, there it is, right there. Just make sure that the end of the threads, that the pedal, those threads are almost touching. I mean, I'm talking not even a piece of paper fits between the edge of those threads and the pedal. Ironically, or I should say predictably, that put the harness there facing down like it was on the old one. So that's what we were looking up at right there. So the new one went into the exact same position that the old one was in, snapped it in, tightened this lock nut, which what I was about to say was that was the hardest part, was actually getting the wrench up in there and on that nut to turn it. But now that that's all done, of course going to test it, but the big thing is snapping all this plastic back together the way that it came apart. So hopefully this video was helpful. Again, I'll apologize that it's not nicely produced, but this is a very, very tight and cramped, awful job. And I just wanted you guys to know, you girls to know, that this is very doable yourself. There's two reasons I could think of not to do this yourself. One's because you can't, or two is because you don't want to. I'm here to tell you, you most likely can. You might not want to. If this is the kind of job that you can pay somebody, you know, $100-200, an independent mechanic to do, and they're willing, it might be one that you want to avoid just because it's very uncomfortable, and I'm sure I'm going to be pretty sore from having this in the small of my back for the last half hour. But point is, this is a job you know, barring physical, you know, challenges that might make it more difficult, this is a job you can do yourself. I hope this video was helpful. If it is, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps us. Also, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us bring more videos to you that can help you get things done yourself much more quickly and cost effectively than you know, the long way or having somebody else do it. So again, this is Drew. This is a 2004 essentially through 2009 Toyota Prius brake switch to fix the cruise control issue. Thank you.